Late last night, a meeting in the White House to map out a strategy for the midterms. Jackie Heinrich's joining us. All right, Jackie, what came out of the meeting?
Well, Stuart, White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles and Deputy Chief of Staff James Blair met with most of the cabinet on Tuesday to map out a 2026 strategy to keep the House and the Senate, as President Trump plans to make good on his promise to run as if he's on the ballot himself. Later today, the president's heading to battleground Georgia, where his speech is seen as a preview of his State of the Union address, a heavy focus coming on the economy.
People are going to see and watch the State of the Union. We're going to be talking about the economy. We inherited a mess, and now we have prices way down. We have energy way down. Gasoline is now breaking $2 a gallon in many places, and it's been actually amazing.
The White House is also signaling President Trump will touch on border enforcement and also the push in Congress to require voter ID for elections. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt posting last night about a contrast with the Biden era, saying, quote, "Clowns like Chuck Schumer think you should have to show photo ID to attend the Democratic National Convention, but not to vote."
What President Trump wants Americans to understand is that this is only the start and the best is yet to come. The historic success that we have seen since he took office is just the beginning of enormous growth and opportunity that we are about to witness.
The president's visit later today to Rome, Georgia, coincides with early voting starting in a special election there to fill the seat formerly belonging to Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, and also coincides with a partial government shutdown. Yesterday, the White House characterized Democratic proposals to reopen the government as unserious and coming at a cost to federal employees from FEMA, TSA, and the Coast Guard, who are all going without paychecks, Stuart.
All right, got it, Jackie. Thank you. Japan is investing $36 billion into U.S. oil, gas and minerals. It's part of a larger $550 billion trade deal. Former Energy Secretary Rick Perry joins me now. Mr. Secretary, does Texas get most of that money? And if so, why?
Well, Ohio is going to get a big chunk of it. They're building a natural gas generation facility up at Portsmouth, Ohio. So that's I think some 9 gigawatts of power. So we obviously are short of power in the United States. That's the reason that you're seeing a lot of investments in power like Fermi America up in Amarillo that I'm involved with for the data center world. Having those communities that support those data centers is really important. So Texas, as you just said, Stuart, is going to be the recipient of a offshore very large crude carrier facility to export our crude across the world. So Japan understands that America is where you want to be investing. We don't overtax, don't overregulate, don't overlitigate in the state of Texas. So a lot of investment is coming to the state of Texas. And that's not to say that Georgia and Ohio are not in the mix here as well. So the president's trade policies are working. I will suggest to you they're going to create a lot of jobs in America and a lot of wealth.
Next one, sir. Early voting is underway in Texas for the Senate primary. President Trump has not thrown his support behind any Republican candidate yet. Those candidates include incumbent Senator John Cornyn, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, and Congressman Wesley Hunt. Why do you think the president has not backed a specific candidate?
Well, in this case, he stated, he likes them all. He knows them all. They all supported him. I'm very upfront. I'm for John Cornyn. And this is, for me, a very simple issue. Character counts. Ronald Reagan said that. I believe it today. And John Cornyn is the reflection that character counts. If you're looking for somebody that votes 99% of the time with President Trump, can be a real leader for Texas in the United States Senate, as John Cornyn is, it is pretty easy. Stick with the man who's been performing for Texas, been performing for our country for a long time, and that's John Cornyn.
It's a tight race on the other side, too, between Jasmine Crockett and James Tallarico. Any predictions?
I'll just let them sort that one out. That's between Dumb and Dumber. So I'll let them have their go with that.
My dollar says you really want Jasmine Crockett to be the nominee. I know it.
You know what? They'll sort it out. Either one of these candidates are not going to show well in November.
You're a former governor of Texas and you're a diplomat as well. Now, last one, sir. Meta is getting ready to shell out, well, I think it's $65 million to support politicians who want to advance AI in their states. Spending has already begun in Texas, I believe. Do you think states should regulate AI or the feds?
Well, I'm a big 10th Amendment guy. Wrote a book about it, and my friend Chip Roy helped write that book back it's been 10 years ago now. But the fact is, federalism works. Allow the states to decide what those regulations are going to be, and the businesses will figure it out. Just like today, California overtaxes, overregulates, overlitigates, and the people leave those states and come to states that don't. New York City, great example of it, Stuart. What is happening in Texas with Dallas becoming the real epicenter for financial services in the country and in the world, frankly. And you're going to see people leaving New York City, leaving Wall Street, coming to Dallas, to Y'all Street, as they should.
One day, sir, you'll come to New York and we'll show you what's really happening here. Rick Perry, thank you very much,
Well,
sir.
I come to New York, but I recruit businesses to come down to be engaged and involved with the Texas Stock Exchange.
You've been doing well, I take it. Rick Perry, thanks for joining us, sir. Appreciate it.